Assalamualaikum and hi there. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hi there. My name is Laila and I make videos on my art. But as of recently, I have also been documenting my life as a student. Today, I will be talking about the 10 mistakes that you should not do as a PASUM student, because as a former PASUM student myself during the session 2022 to 2023, I have my fair share of regrets and things that I wish to not repeat if I were to ever have a second chance into enrolling into PASUM again. But honestly, I would not do that again.
Leave me alone!
But if I could go back in time and tell 18-year-old Laila all of these things, I think I would do myself a great favor. But without further ado, let's just get right into it. Number one is not prioritizing mathematics. Now, I know that it is a no-brainer that math is essential as a science student or as a STEM student. It has already been informed to PASUM students early on in their education. This is the things that they would tell you during MSKP, Minggu Sesuai Kenal Pelajar, where they tell you about the syllabus, the subjects that you will learn, as well as how your CGPA will be accounted for. And I am well aware that mathematics is one of the subjects that they include in your best tree for your total CGPA. So for instance, you do well in chemistry and physics, and your bio is not that great, so they will take your marks for chemistry, your marks for physics, and your marks for maths, whether it is one of your best trees or not, and they will accumulate that, and that's where your CGPA is birthed. For me, the reason why I did not prioritize mathematics is purely because I don't really like maths, and maths is definitely not my forte. It's one of my weakest subjects out of all the 4 main subjects that I learned as a life science student. I definitely see how maths was the subject that was pulling all of my other subjects down, and so I don't want that to happen to you in any case. So don't repeat the same mistake as I do. If you're like me and maths is not your best subject, I implore you, not implore, highly encourage, demand you to focus on mathematics. And so whatever it is, no matter how difficult it is, you're going to want to prioritize mathematics because that is important in your CGPA. Very, very important. Stop telling yourself that it is okay for you to fail SEM 1 because SEM 2 kan ada. No. What kind of idiot would think that way? Apparently we are. If you're a life science student and you're planning to pursue any of these degrees, and even if you're not a life science student and you're considering taking architecture, then I would beg you, again, I would demand for you to score as high as you can for the first semester finals, because these are the grades that will be taken into account whenever you are about to land on an interview. Take it from someone who was rejected flat out from getting into medicine simply because I did not reach the minimum requirement for medicine. Like, I was just like cukup makan, not even cukup makan, slightly lower from it.
There is no passion, there is no vision, there is no aggression, there is no mindset in this football club.
You want to aim higher than the minimum requirement that is given. If I'm not mistaken, medicine, it's subjected to changes, but if it's still 3.8, you want to go above 3.8, because a friend of mine did got 3.8 for her GPA, but she still failed to get any interviews because the competition is really high. That's why they set interviews in the first place. It is a highly competitive degree, and therefore you want to be among the best of the best, or in fact try to even be the best. So yes, your semester 1 is the factor that determines whether you get into these interviews or not. And even if you're not a life science student and you're not planning to land onto any interviews for these degrees, then your sem 1 results is still important, because you don't want it to drag down your sem 2. So say during sem 1 you you didn't really do well, and then you got that realization that you want to do better during sem 2, and you do get good results for sem 2. But your sem 1 results, given that it's really bad, it might possibly drag down your semester 2 results, and in the end your overall CGPA won't be that great. And so we don't want that for ourselves. The third mistake that a lot of people do is not really preparing for lab sessions. This is not really like a mistake, because as time goes on, people will eventually learn that lab is so important and that you really don't want to mess it up. Because as time goes on, you realize how draining lab sessions really is, and to minimize that drainage, you want to prepare firsthand so that lab session will go well. And this is especially true for chemistry lab, because chemistry lab is one hell of a ride, I'm telling you. There was this one time during lab session, and for your information, lab session is like 3 hours. 3 hours of standing up. You want to know why? Because nobody chooses to sit in the end. Like, we're all just standing up because it's so much more easier to do work that way. That's not the biggest issue here. The biggest issue here is the fact that there was this one time for lab, we not only had to do experiments, but we also had to do a presentation, and we also had a quiz. And I'm telling you, if you don't prepare firsthand, if you do not study up the syllabus early on, if you do not revise on the topic that lab is going to cover, then you're going to struggle a lot. And even with like friends around you, if you're surrounded by people who are just not as sure as you are, then you're kind of doomed. You want to make sure that you at least have a light meal before you go into lab. You want to make sure that you read up all of the materials that were given beforehand. So not only your lab manual, but any other additional readings that your demonstrators might give you. Yeah, if you're a life science student, listen up. For biolab, we have 2 different types of assessments. One is lab, and the second one is hands-on. So hands-on is they'll see how you do the things, like how you do the procedures and all that stuff. And the demonstrators will also ask you topic that lab is on. So for instance, say during that lab session, we're doing blood testing to identify blood types. And then later on, after we've already conducted that experiment, the demonstrator will call each and you guys one by one to be questioned on the topic in regards to the blood type. So the demonstrator can ask you any questions in regards to that topic, ranging from like, how do you identify these blood types? Like, what are the 4 different types of blood types? That's a very simplified version of the questions. It can be pretty complex, it can be pretty simple, but whatever it is, like, make sure you study up on that topic. Because there was this one time, like, my class, like the majority of my class could not answer the question by our demonstrator because we did not read up early on. But in our defense, like, we kind of just skimmed through it during lectures. Like, our lecturer didn't really cover that topic. But then again, it's also our responsibility to ensure that we already, read up. The next mistake is not taking advantage of the PASUM library. Now, ladies and gents, go to the library and pick up some books. And I'm telling you that your study journey will be so much more easier. And the reason why I say this is that some of the lecturers are actually the ones who wrote the textbook or the activity books that are available at the library. And so you want to be smart when you're picking books, because some books will follow the matrix syllabus or STPM syllabus, but you can still use it nevertheless, because parts of it do cover the same syllabus that we do in PASUM, except some of them might be lacking. So say on the topic of thermodynamics, like PASUM might cover it a bit more extensively, meanwhile matrix doesn't. This is just an example, by the way. I'm not really sure. So you want to be smart in picking the books, and if you find a lecturer's name that sounds familiar in the writer's catalog, then you might want to pick it up. And what I do is that I would usually take the activity books that you can find at the very back of the library. You can't borrow them, so you can only use them in the library. And so take advantage of it and like really go through those questions, especially for chemistry. A lot of people that I know would usually do the practices in these books, because it's really helpful for MCQ questions in chemistry. The next mistake is not doing your tutorials on time, or not completing your tutorials to begin with. So this is something that I want to preach on. Do your damn tutorials. No matter how lazy you are, no matter how difficult it is, you still want to push through each and every question. And the reason why I say this is because tutorials are essentially how the questions will be like in your exam papers, and that's a no-brainer once again. Now my suggestion would be that if you struggle on a tutorial, which is something that I often do, I often struggle through a lot of tutorials, what I do is that I really make sure that I focus during discussions so that I'll be able to write down the answers given. And you want to make sure that you do it in a clear and concise way, because once you reach that point where you want to revise your tutorials, you'll have like this really neat and clean way to study, rather than having to like struggle through the scrabbles and the chakar ayams that you have written. And PASUM also do this thing called PASUM booster for each subject, where they would relay information on, study materials and stuff like that. And so the tutorial answers being updated from time to time is something that is not uncommon, but you should do yourself a favor and make sure that your tutorials are complete. Make sure you complete your tutorials before mid-sem tests or finals hit. Do it. Next mistake that you should not do is feeling insecure with the way you study and comparing your method of studying to other people. Now, I'm very guilty of this because as a budak sekolah harian, I never saw how my friends studied because we're all back at home. So maybe if you're an asrama student, you won't be as affected as I did. But yeah, once I finally experienced the whole having roommates and stuff like that, and you see how they do certain things differently from how you do, you might like question the way you do things. I had this roommate in which she would usually study like late at night. And she would like study outside and she'll come back to the room around like 1 a.m. or so. Like sometimes I would feel bad that I'm not working as hard as her. And that's the wrong narrative that I have put on to myself, because that's definitely not true. Because I am someone who usually studies during the day. And this is not to say that I've never pulled any all-nighters. I usually only pull all-nighters during study week because I know that I can sleep in and that I don't really have any commitments early in the morning. I don't want to risk that by staying up late and going to bed late, because I know for a fact that if I stay up, the next morning I will not be able to function right. And so in the end, I never actually like tried to stay up at night, but I did feel bad to a certain extent. But you shouldn't be feeling that way. Whatever works for you should be continued. But there's nothing wrong in exploring different methods of studying, especially if your method of studying might not be as effective as you think. But if certain things are not working for you, then you have to trust your gut feeling and do whatever is best for you. If you're someone who is not a night owl, don't try to force yourself to be a night owl. Always make sure that your study method caters to your needs. The next mistake is thinking that you won't have that many kokurikulum opportunities. This is not really a mistake, so to speak, but I just wanted to let you guys know that despite not having any clubs in PASUM, like we're not encouraged to join any clubs from UM, but you will still have a lot of kokurikulum opportunities in terms of taking on roles in JTK, which is Jawatan Kuasa Tertinggi College. A lot of kokurikulum opportunities, especially during second semester, because that's when a lot of competitions are happening. Second semester, I think that's when I really tried to put myself out there, joining the debate competition, joining Pitram, which is Pertandingan Inovasi amongst matriculations. I also tried out to be one of the committee members for a festival. What festival was it? It was a festival that happened in Kuas. It's not impossible for you to get Coco marks in PASUM. Even like attending like talks or attending an event can grant you Coco marks. So always take advantage of those. Always, try to go out and explore the different activities that you can participate in. The next mistake is thinking that you will get a well-deserved break during sem break, but I'm telling you that you won't, because it's only worth 1 week. But despite that, make sure that you allocate some time to actually rest and de-stress, even though there is a lot for you to catch up on your studies, so that you won't be burnt out. And finally, the mistake that I wish I never made is not going out and hanging out with friends more often. I only started to realize how important it is to have people around you
during the second semester, and that is when I actually made an effort to go out more with my classmates and any people that were kind enough to be friends with me. During the first semester, I was pretty closed off and shy, and I would much rather spend my time alone in the room. But then I realized that it was greatly affecting my mental health because I keep on thinking that it would be better for me to just drown myself in books, thinking about studies only, when in reality, that's not what we want. We want to make sure that we have a balance between our studies and having fun. So if you're going to study hard, then make sure you play just as hard. I believe that this is more so a problem for people who are introverted or socially awkward. But here I want to say that not everyone is terrible out there, and there will be people who will accept you just the way you are, no matter how different the way you live or how different your upbringing is. There will be people who would welcome you with open arms, and keep them close because they're precious. And don't always be stuck up in your room, because there are many things to experience as an 18-year-old and 19-year-old.
I hope that you guys boleh ambil pengajaran from this video, because I want to make sure that, my experiences can help you to have a much more smoother and happier and peaceful journey through your PASUM education. So to any of you guys who have any inquiries or any concerns, do drop down your questions in the comment section below, and I'll do my very best to answer them. And all that's left is to say good luck on embarking your journey as a PASUM student. Take pride in it, but at the same time be humble, and take care. Bye bye.